How's it going, everybody? Fully Baked here. So, endings, am I right? Boss fights are a cornerstone of video games, serving as a method of testing a player's skill as well as a good way to advance the story by possibly axing off an important character. Final bosses are, more often than not, integral to gaming because it serves as a way to end the game, hopefully leaving the player on a satisfying note. Unless there's post-game, but nobody likes post-game. Except for the weirdo who does, but we don't talk about those people. To complement these final boss battles, there will often be some awesome music to go along with it, which is what I'm going to discuss today. This is my list of the top 10 final boss themes in video games. A couple of things I should mention before we start. Firstly, this is my personal ranking of games that I've played. It's possible, hell it's even likely, that a final boss theme you like isn't on here. And that's okay. This is just my personal opinion. Leave some of your favorites down in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Next, the rules. Rule number 1. This list will only be encapsulating final boss music and not final level music. Rule number 2. It has to be music made specifically for the game, which seems obvious, but I'm mainly putting this here because my brother suggested I put Should I Stay or Should I Go by The Clash because it's technically the final boss theme from Far Cry 4. Rule 3. They have to be games I've played. A lot of people recommended I put the final boss theme from Persona 5 on this list, but considering I've never played it, it unfortunately will not be making on this list. Sorry, Persona fans. Lastly, it's important to talk about how these will be judged. For a song to make it on this list, the song both has to complement the boss that goes along with it, and it has to serve as an awesome climactic tune, as well as just being a good song. So basically, if it's a good song that works well in context, it has the viability to be on here. Alright, let's kick it off with number 10. My number 10 is what I'd like to call the baseline, as in I believe this is the track that inspired all the boss themes to come after this, good and bad. And if this is where we're starting off, we've got some pretty stiff competition. Some people are probably going to come at me for not putting other final boss themes on here, which is fair. I consulted a lot of people before making this list, and they all told me one thing. Hey, you're putting Mario Galaxy 2 on here, right? And I said, no. And now I have considerably fewer friends. My justification for choosing this one over Super Mario Galaxy 2's theme is one simple reason. The fight itself complements the music more in this case. With Galaxy 2, the fight is pretty easy and quite difficult to actually lose, meaning the song itself doesn't really last that long. This happens later down the line on the list, but the other reason I chose it was because the other implication outside of knocking asteroids into Bowser in the Galaxy 2 fight was Bowser is massive. This ain't the first time, and it certainly won't be the last. As for 64's theme, it's pretty consistent throughout the entirety of it, that being, it's pretty much just a dark orchestral organ, but it doesn't really need to be anything more than that. 64's final boss theme is dark and gothic, and I think the final boss theme encompasses that really well, because, you know, it's an organ. But considering that's the only instrument that goes along with it, and the fight itself doesn't really add that much as it goes on, I can't really talk about much with this. Like I said before, don't worry, I'll be talking a lot more about other boss themes from here on out. But for now, this is still a damn fine way to start the list. Let's quickly revise the rules here for a second. When I said that I had to have played the games in order for them to be on this list, I never really said I had to like the games. This is important for the next entry because as awesome as the theme itself is, there is a good reason that it is this low. I can hear the Octopath Traveler community ready to tear my head off, so let me quickly talk about the game before I continue with the music. I really loved Octopath Traveler initially, but its novelty has kind of worn off on me in the past couple of years. I find that even though the game encourages you to use multiple characters, it's realistically viable to stick with one overpowered team, meaning your other characters won't level up, meaning backtracking, more grinding, and a whole host of other issues that come with it. I have a lot to say about this game, so don't be surprised if a full-length Octopath Traveler review comes in the future, and yes, that will be taking forever to make. Back to the theme itself, it's awesome. It's got a great sense of scale, it fits the idea of fighting the Dark Lord, as generic a concept as that may be, and in general, it's an awesome song. I bet a lot of people would love to hear it in context to the actual fight one day. When I started this entry, I was going to give a good reason for why it's this low, And the reason for that is good luck ever getting to this fight. I've genuinely been playing this game for years and have not gotten close to this final boss once. Hell, I haven't even gotten all the subclasses. Now, there are going to be some veterans who might come at me and say, well, why not just use one team for the whole game? And to that I say, that's not only boring, but also goes against the whole game's narrative, with these characters leveling up all at the same time. So, as amazing as this song is, and I do genuinely mean that, getting to the final boss itself is such a chore that I honestly can't recommend even going for it. Trust me though, this is the only boss on this list that I can safely say that about. All entries from here on in will be positive to an extent. Hey, the funny YouTube man is cheating! Not cheating, I swear. Let me explain. This is why in the rules I never put that several games from the same series couldn't have multiple entries, but let's say you're a stickler who doesn't like that I did it this way. Well, consider this. Ultimate Bowser is from a Mario game. This one is from a Mario and Luigi game. See? Different series. It all works out in the end. This is definitely one of the most famous songs on this list, and honestly, it's for good reason. In the Final has reached a point of transition where it's more known outside of the realm of its game than it is in its realm, like a lesser Megalovania. In context to the fight, this song works very well. It's the end of the world, and if you can't pull through on both fronts, it's the end. And yeah, if this isn't the theme to complement that, I don't know what is. It has a great sense of scale with the piano and strings working tandem to create a very epic melody in the forefront. In the back, the piano keeps going up and down, which really works in its favor, and the drums are both off the hook and also surprisingly well contained. There's a minor angelic choir in the back, which couldn't hurt, and yeah, it really conveys the end of the world in music form. So why is it this low? I mean, if it all works together to form something really good, shouldn't it be higher? Yes. However, there's something working against it that holds it back slightly. The fight itself. Dark Bowser as a threat isn't that interesting of a final boss, so some of the potency is lost there. If you think about it in context to Fawful and the Dark Star, it gets better, but that gets lost a bit over time. The fight is still great, and the scale is definitely still there, but it holds it back slightly. As for the entries after this, I think they're just straight up better songs. Nothing against this one, of course, but they just keep getting better and better. That's how a countdown works after all. Nonetheless, this fight is still awesome, and the music still kicks it into high gear. This is where the fun begins. These top 7 are genuinely some of my favorite tracks from their respective games, going beyond just awesome boss themes, starting here. Now, I often cite Terraria as my favorite game of all time. However, it didn't make it on here, so sorry about that, me. However, what about my second favorite? Well, I'm glad you asked, because leading directly off of Step 3, we have Step 4, Bombs, for throwing at you. Who knew using a fax machine to make music would be so effective? This song mainly uses 4 chords and has pretty much the same instrumentation throughout, occasionally switching things up but staying mainly the same. What it lacks in complexity, it more than makes up for in scale, cause damn, this song complements the battle it's attached to surprisingly well. Due to Portal as a series having a naturally confining nature to it, it'd be weird for the final boss theme to deviate from that. Thankfully, it manages to keep similar structure while also managing to be fresh. This song encompasses the idea of fighting underground against and with robots very well, with scratchy sounds and very EDM-style percussion. However, it goes beyond that here. Portal's music keeps with its theme very well, especially in the second game. So when there are times where there are grander scenes with massive set pieces, the music accompanies it. When it's a room filled with lasers, the music gets a bit uncomfortable. But here, the theme is being locked in with an idiotic, power-hungry madman. And yeah, it captures every essence of that. I've heard some interesting theories about how deep the song actually runs with the game, like how the scratchy parts are the central core corrupting Wheatley, and the soft parts are him fighting back against the system, or how the song isn't even about the fight, it's about Wheatley coming to terms with the fact that Chell didn't even have to try that hard to get to him. These, of course, are just speculation, but it's really awesome to hear how many possible motifs behind the song people can find. and in my opinion, this song really fits with all these theories. Of course, objectively, as a song, it's not really that much to write home about. By all accounts, it's a fax machine trying to beatbox, that's why I made that joke in the beginning. But what it lacks in actual musicality, it more than makes up for in service to the actual battle, as well as the speculation to what this theme could actually be about. I'm just really glad that one of my favorite games of all time actually made it onto this list. I don't really have a clever intro here, so I'll try and do that whole clever foreshadowing thing people seem to be so good at. Indie games and Kickstarter are always a gamble. On one end of the spectrum, you got games like Yooka-Laylee and Mighty No. 9, but on the other end? Coming through in spades, I see. Maybe this is why people don't talk to me. Okay, I think I need to be honest. The Possessor isn't really that great compared to all the others on this list. I mean, it's still great, but I have problems with it. In a game like Shovel Knight, where awesome songs coat every single corner of this game, this one feels like kind of a step down. It feels like it could be any of the other boss fights in the game, and it doesn't do that much to separate itself as the final boss. It has nice light motifs that call back to other themes, which could be seen as the separation between this and other battle themes, but considering a lot of themes do that and this one doesn't do it in a unique or special way, it doesn't feel as special as it should. Of course, with all these things in mind, it's still important to keep in mind that I still like this boss theme. It's still got a good sense of scale and the instrumentation is still pretty good, but it's the lack of separation from other fights in the game that make it kind of weak. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, why did you even put this on here then? If this isn't very good, why include it on your list of favorite final boss themes? One reason. This isn't the end of the fight. Now this is how you do it. First of all, combining Shovel and Shield Knight together not only makes this fight better, but it also retroactively makes this song that much better. Because with the happier sounding song mixed with the gameplay, it really feels like you're getting the upper hand. Also, its name is just awesome. The Possessor makes more sense in context, but the Betrayer really sells the fight. The best part about this song is easily the high parts rising together, almost as if it's a mix of Shovel and Shield Knight. Although it may be the best part, this song still slaps overall, doubling up on pretty much every front. Tempo to percussion to synth, it all kicks itself into high gear and really serves as a massive send-off to this great game. It's weird for me to praise this song and what makes it tick because It Goes Hard is about as deep an explanation as I can really give it. If it weren't for the Possessor, this would probably be higher, but even then, the Possessor isn't a bad song. It's just that the second phase ramps it up so much that it feels very tonally different. All things considered, this final boss theme is epic and deserving of praise. Man, the last couple of entries have been really techno-based, huh? I mean, we had Portal 2 a couple entries ago, and then we just had Shovel Knight, so what's better than fast-paced techno beats, children? Double time jazz, baby! Yes, I'm biased. Of course I'm biased. Everyone's biased. Shut up. This one fits a pretty similar build to the last song, but this one is actually very good this time. Admission to Perdition is honestly a fun song that captures the spirit of Cuphead surprisingly well. For those of you who somehow may not know, Cuphead is a very difficult game, so by extension, it can get pretty frantic. That's really what this song encompasses, which is clear with the opening part. This song feels very scattershot, which is very apropos for a fight dealing with the devil. This song also features leitmotifs from pretty much every other boss in the game, whether it be from Cala Maria or the Phantom Express, it just goes all out. It's actually very interesting, and I never even noticed it at first. There was a comment on the YouTube video for this, so thank you very much, mysterious commenter, whose name I might flash up if I feel kind enough. This song makes for a good fight with the devil, most certainly, but it lacks something I've praised the other songs for thus far. Scale. Yeah, it's frantic and crazy like you'd expect, but I just don't really think it directly carries that much weight behind it. That is, until this happens. I could make a pretty easy joke here, but I think it's too easy. I'll abstain. One Hell of a Time has a couple things going for it. One, the name. It fits both the person you're fighting, the place you're fighting, and the difficulty of the battle. 2. The pickup. The fight gets more intense and so does the music. It goes from uncontrolled chaos to, while still chaotic, a much more manageable feeling chaotic. Out of the two themes, like the last entry, this one is definitely my more preferred of the two. It has a freaking marimba solo, for God's sake. What more could you ask for? It's got intense percussion, great horn sections, the bass goes off the hook, the piano hits feel intense. It's a really great archetype for a final battle. Of all the songs in this list that quote, go hard, I'd say this is the second best in that regard. I keep using words like intense to describe it, and honestly, that should really tell you how awesome this theme is. God, Cuphead is really just such an amazing game. Fly high, you beautiful bastards. This is going to seem very similar to the last one in setting, and honestly, this is probably one of my favorite games that I've played in recent memory. So, picture this. Family problems. Hades is the most recent game on this list to come out, and one I didn't initially have much interest in. After some YouTubers started giving it rave reviews, from Soundsmith to Defothalizer, I knew I had to pick it up. I was not disappointed. But this isn't a review of Hades, this is about its final boss theme, and yeah, it's awesome. God of the Dead serves more so as a build-up. It's a slow burning song, which is demonstrated very well through the guitar part's sluggish nature. That, of course, is not a bad thing, it's just how that part is. The drums could have theoretically been double-timed and made it much more intense, but I like what we got. Every now and then, it picks up and goes a little bit faster, but it serves more to convey the feeling that you've almost reached the end, making it very triumphant feeling. I appreciate what this song manages to accomplish, really. Despite its slow speed, it still manages to feel like a high-action final boss theme, and honestly, the instrumentation during this segment is excellent. The guitars go hard, the theremin is surprisingly fitting, and I've already talked about the drums. There isn't that much more I can say. But honestly, Hades itself is just such an awesome game, and this final boss fight certainly is no shame in helping it get there. Honestly, all the music in this game is great. You know... Oh, we're just getting started. I have nothing else to say. Go play Hades. Have you guys ever heard of the idea of perpetual motion? Basically, it's when an object is in a constant state of movement. Now, if we count thought as an object, we could consider the previous entry the start of this perpetual motion, and this entry would be the continuation of that idea. This is getting really confusing, so let me clear it up with what I'm actually talking about. We're going from one hell of a fight to a fight that makes you go, hell yeah. See? Told you so. Mick Gordon took a bold move when designing the soundtrack for the Doom remakes by making them good and not expecting us to all lose our flippin' minds when they turned out to be the greatest thing ever. Yeah, the soundtrack to Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal are some of my favorites in all of gaming, and choosing between this and Final Sin was tough. In the end, I had to give it to Mastermind for one big reason: active intensity. Final Sin kind of feels like a build-up to a drop that never really comes. This one, though, is always going fast, with the exception of the beginning, but that's for cutscene purposes. Once this song really kicks in, it doesn't really ever let up. It's just utterly pulsating with the drums going full force as this kickin' synth and bass plays in the background. It really makes you feel awesome while playing it. Mastermind serves as kind of the opposite purpose to the first half of God of the Dead. While that one was a build-up to the second half and took its time, this one just kind of gets into it while offering very little breathing room. And, just like God of the Dead, that may sound like a bad thing, but trust me, it is not. And like a lot of good boss themes, this one has leitmotifs back to the best track in its respective game, in this case being BFG Division. In service to the fight itself, it's Doom. Of course it matches the fight. It's a giant spider mastermind with ooey gooey bits of gray matter sticking out the top that can fire goddamn lasers at you that you need to pump all of your ammo from every single gun into. Of course it works in context with the song. This song doesn't stop for anything, and neither does this boss. It really works in tandem. Remember back in the Cuphead entry when I said it went the second hardest? Yeah, this goes the hardest out of any song on this list, hands down. And that's even including the next two entries. Speaking of which, we're getting really close to the top two, but real quick, I just wanted to make an edit where you blow the mastermind's head off with the BFG with a certain song playing in the back. I'm gonna do that right now. I really hope this was worth it. I said to myself for this list to not let my feelings get in the way. The reason for that was this was originally the number 1 entry. I can't tell you how much I debated whether or not it should move back down because I love this boss theme so much. But after a lot, and I do mean a lot of deliberation, it got knocked down for one big reason, which I'll mention in a second. As for why I love this song, I don't think it's very hard to see why. It's a grand, booming orchestral piece to complement this rather ghastly looking beast. It's a perfect pace, not going too fast to build itself up, but also not being so slow that it feels like it drags on. The instrumentation is incredible, and everyone feels like they're giving it their all, truly. If there was ever a definition for an epic final boss theme, this would most definitely be it. However, like a lot of the entries that preceded it, this one doesn't end there. When Sonic starts getting the upper hand, there comes this awesome remix of the opening theme, Reach for the Stars. I'm gonna be honest with you, if you feel no emotions during this scene, as you get the upper hand on Eggman and a dramatic remix of the opening theme blasts in the background, wipe yourself off, man, cause you dead. There's not really much to comment on here. It's an orchestral remix of the main theme that goes hard like the track before it. It just really gives off this vibe of, this is it, you've earned this. These two boss themes added together, with awesome instrumentals and grand scale, combined together to form my personal favorite boss theme of all time. Yes, it's not number 1, and this is my favorite. Weird how that works, right? Again, objectivity. So why isn't this song number 1? One big reason. This fight isn't very hard once you get down to it, which means you won't get to hear much of any of these awesome themes. However, what I chose for my number 1 shares all the same qualities of this one, as well as actually serving a boss that goes as hard as the music does. That's not to downplay how amazing I find these tracks, of course, but the fight just ends a bit too quickly. Now let's get to the entry I bet you've all been waiting with bated breath for. But first, we gotta take care of Eggman.
Taste the rainbow, motherfucker!
Remember earlier when I was talking about foreshadowing and I said this? Indie games and Kickstarter are always a gamble. On one end of the spectrum, you got games like Yooka-Laylee and Mighty No. 9. But on the other end? I bet I can guess what some of you were expecting me to say. Yeah, I'm pretty sure from the moment you heard that, and heck, even when some of you saw the name of this video, you've had one game in your mind. Undertale. This entry was actually surprisingly hard to pin down. There are 3 awesome candidates to be on here, each of which complements their final battle really well, but there could only be one, and I had to settle on what may not be the most popular choice, but to me was the best choice. So, I'll leave you with this. What if you took one of the nicest sounds a human can create and turned it into the scariest thing ever? You'd get what I consider to be the greatest final boss theme of all time. Your best nightmare. Let me explain myself before you all come at me here. Hopes and Dreams is great, but whenever I play this fight, it never seems to have the grand sense of scale the song has. The same goes for Megalovania, which is probably the one you expected to land on here. As a straight up song, I think it's probably objectively better than both of these, but as a final boss theme, Your Best Nightmare took the spot for me in the end. Firstly, let's talk about that thing I just mentioned a couple seconds ago, the scale, which I keep bringing up, but it's important to final boss themes. Omega Flowey is an absolutely abominable beast, and I don't think there could be a better song to complement a battle against it. It sediments that feeling of dread right at the start, having an ominous build up to what might just be the scariest scene in all of Undertale, with maybe the exception of rejecting Kara and the genocide ending, the laugh, along with the reveal of what you're actually fighting. Then the music really kicks in. It's frantic, it's fast-paced, and, like Flowey, foreboding, and to an extent pretty scary. It complements Flowey super well. However, that's only one half of this song. Then it changes to the heart phases, where you get remixes of earlier games' tracks while trying to act in order to fight back against Flowey. These subtle nods back to the other game's tracks are great if for no other reason than it's just a nice nod. But if I'm going to be a pretentious commentator, I need to find a deeper meaning. To me, these songs are representations of the other humans who fell down, possibly explaining when they died in conjunction with the music that plays. Again, that's just me being pretentious. So yeah, this song goes really well with the theme of the fight, and the other sections are fun nods to other sections in the game. However, the fight, along with the music, like pretty much every entry before this, doesn't just end there. Yeah, just like a lot of the fights before this one, this final boss technically has 2 songs instead of just 1. And while this one may not call back to any music earlier in the game, it makes up for it in just generally being an amazing song. The first half isn't really anything to write home about, but when it kicks in later, it works so well with the fight going on that it almost blows my mind how well they made it work. It's super intense and high action, but it's not threatening like the original track. This one instead gives off the perfect vibe of you're almost there, just a little bit further. This is complemented amazingly by the fight itself. His attacks pick up once again, being still incredibly hard to dodge, but with the souls healing you, you can attack Flowey while getting better at dodging his attacks and getting healed all the while, meaning you finally get the upper hand. This segment might actually be one of the most uplifting yet terrifying scenes in any video game, and I'm not kidding. And if it weren't for this song, I don't know if it would have gotten that status from me. So yeah, the first song is greatly foreboding and scary, just like the fight itself, and the second song weaves perfectly with the fight, capping it off in one of the most satisfying final bosses of all time.